Mm, Welcome all. Thank you for being here. So happy to be with you today. You're welcome to this space of nuggets of wisdom from inner transition and cultural transformation circle. Today we have an amazing topic from our beloved Eva and Justin that are inviting to a just walk in Scotland. I had the privilege, the gift to be there last year when these ideas were like bubbling up from the collective field in the land and in the people around the fire on the forest. It was so beautiful to witness this way of being humans in this moment of big challenges in life. And so, welcome to this collective experiment of being birth channels of a new humanity through these conversations and this opening to the unknown and also being in service for this big transformation to happen through us. So I want to introduce um, Eva and Justin are community climate activists. Justin have worked on community land rights at home in Scotland and also in East Africa. Heva has focused on group processes that help us to share power in a healthy way. And as I shared before, both are organizing and helping a group to organize this Just Walk, a moving assembly from Skye to Glasgow in northern autumn um, on September. So you are super welcome here. This space is a relaxed talk between friends to share with more friends, to be an inspiration in other places of the globe of a Mother Earth to activate these kind of actions that will bring more hearts and hands and hearts into life care. So Eva, if you want to introduce a little bit yourself, then Justin, and we just flow.
Mm, thank you, and that's a lovely welcome. And yeah, really excited to be here. I think we're your first guests, is that right? Yeah, first dish.
British, yeah.
Nearly the first. Anyway, whatever.
Eva and
Um,
I were last month, Eva.
oh
So
yeah,
we
great.
launched 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's a really lovely thing to do. Um, yeah, well, yes, I mean, you talked about what I do. I guess I would just like to present myself just now as a bit jet lagged. I had to rush to Thailand. I was kind of sent by my family to go and look after my brother who was very ill in Thailand. And I came back late last night, so I am fairly out of it. So I'll do my best to be present and be have a good idea in my head and be able to speak words. But yeah, just so you know, that's where I'm at. And I'll pass to you, Justin, to say whatever you would like to say.
Yeah, well, I'll find out. Yeah, nice to be here. So I'm Justin, yeah, and yeah, preparing for the land walk, the land justice walk, which is great. It's quite daunting, quite scary. I was just gathering all the kitchen stuff up yesterday. It felt like getting kind of huge pots and burners and everything for an army's worth of people to be able to walk. So it's quite interesting gathering the amount up, and that's even without the food. And so we're going up on Tuesday. So it's very soon. This walk is very soon, and we'll talk more about that. I guess I work with communities. I've been working today over online with communities in East Africa, in Congo, and in Kenya in particular, on community land rights. So I work with forest people who are very connected to their lands and very much experience themselves as being their lands and trying to defend their right to remain on and take care of their lands in opposition to either big companies or government or even conservationists who come along and say, get off this land, we'll look after it. And of course, they don't look after it. They impose control. So yeah, so that's where I'm coming from, is really a strong wish for us here in the global north to be doing what folk are doing in the global south already, which is to really reconnect with our lands and protect our lands. So yeah, that's where, for me, my interest in the walk comes from. That's my quick intro. And I'll quickly grab the door to let somebody in. Back in 2 seconds.
Uh-huh. So Eva, yeah, thanks for being here with the jet lag, and happy your brother is better now.
Mm.
And what a huge coordination. Thanks also for doing all this. Like I was reading, like from 9 people to 90 is a huge coordination. Yeah.
Yes.
Maybe you can share a little bit, how did this idea got into shape, and how has developed in the last year to arrive for today and to next week.
Yes. Well, the idea kind of, like you said, it's been kind of bubbling up. There is a kind of land movement happening in Scotland, probably because it's Scotland is one of the most unequal and unfair land distribution in the whole of Europe. So it's a pressing issue of injustice, and I think it's catalyzing a lot of people. So about this time last year, we were at an event called the Land Moot. A moot is a very old word for a meeting. And at one point we were kind of all getting into groups to talk about um, anything we wanted to, one of those kind of open space type moments. And I'll pass to Justin because I wasn't actually in the group where this idea came, but that Anais asking about where the idea came from.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, as Annie says, it was bubbling up over quite a long period of time, and as you're saying, it kind of came to fruition during the land moot last September in Glasgow. There were just four of us around the table, but there were lots of other people like Eva who wanted to be there, but had to be at other other gatherings at the same time. So there were just a few of us, and the other three, two of the guys were so tall. When we all stood up, I went, "Oh my God, I'm going to be walking next to these giants. I'll be left far behind." Two of us were short, me and Serge short, and then two guys who were very tall. It made me think about, isn't it funny, walking with people, you suddenly realize what's this person's stride like? And that's going to be like that. How do we take care of each other? How do we all walk together with different strengths and different lengths and so on? But it emerged really, yeah, as Eva says, in Scotland, there's been a very strong awareness of land injustice for hundreds of years because the land was taken, communities were thrown off their land, and pushed into factories and cities or sent overseas to take land from people elsewhere in Africa or Americas or Australia. So it's been a serious issue of people being thrown off their land, but also then people here being the ones who throw people off their land elsewhere. So Scotland's quite unusual in that we don't just see ourselves as victims, and we don't just see ourselves as perpetrators. We see ourselves as being in both of those positions. So it's quite a useful place in a way to look at this issue, because it's not just look what you've done to me, or oh, I'm sorry what I've done to you. It's kind of like, oh, we get caught in a colonial process where we can treat other people the way we've been treated. So yeah, it emerged, and it was a strong, and people responded really strongly, didn't they, to the idea.
Mm.
So there were just a few of us at the table, but everybody was really part of that decision. It felt like, and it's grown from there. Yeah.
Mm. Mm, It feels so important what you just mentioned. Like, we don't feel victims, we don't feel perpetrators, and we're in this field. And maybe this is one of the reasons why, looking systemically, you're in a position to deal with power and reflect of the use of power over and power with in a
Mm,
different way.
mm,
And the whole creation of the assemblies that you have been working with, it feels connected. And I read that the Just Walk is like an assembly that will be walking
mm,
through the land.
mm,
And yeah, I want to share a little bit something that happened to me last year when I was there in Scotland, as a Chilean woman, a South American woman,
mm,
because we have this narrative of colonizers, victims, oppressors. And for me, a jewel was to realize that you in the North live the same in different ways, in different times. And for me, this is a healing door. Like, for people from the south to listen to your story, for me, is a healing door, because it's not there are the bad ones and we are the poor ones. Not anymore. We can change this narrative. So if you can tell us, because people in the world don't know much Scotland's story, if you can tell us a little bit what happened in the clearings, for example, which people were doing this work, and why for you it's important to do it today, and what it means, like what is the healing process behind it. Yeah.
Shall I start or you start?
You go. It's fine. You go. Yeah. Yeah. I'm happy either way. If you're awake, go for it. If you're not, I will.
Well, yeah, I could start and you jump in. So, I mean, the clearances in Scotland were our version of what's happened in many, many, many places. And I really appreciate you picking up, particularly on that point and that kind of the discomfort that it's not possible for us to say we're either just victims or just perpetrators. Because I think as soon as capitalism gets going in your place, you become complicit. And we're all a little bit of everything, whether that's, as peoples or as just people. And there's something about recognizing our ability to do harm, as well as to be harmed, that I think is really important, because that kind of the whole trauma that's tied up with this long story of people taking each other's lands can only be healed if we face it. And if we don't make some people good and some people bad, if we say this is part of being human, and another part of being human is that we can make choices. We don't have to be conditioned by our past, but there's something about we need to be conscious of it. If we're unconscious about our past, then we do just react. We just keep on reacting. We keep on reopening that traumatic wound. But if we decide we're going to be conscious about it, it cut a little bit. If we decide we're going to be conscious about it, then we can work on kind of cultural healing. So I guess that's partly what we want to do with this walk, is to address this idea, like, why, it's great, so you're talking about cultural healing, but like, how do you do it? So I think we're partly hoping that that's one of the things that could be happening on this walk, this kind of integration of the fact that people were pushed off their land. So, Scotland has a long history, and it's been messy for a very long time, but that we ended up in a kind of situation where most of the population was doing subsistence farming, and had a little plot of land, and also we're having to work for the laird, the lord, the big landowner. And due to a series of kind of political changes, it became much more profitable to have sheep on the land than people. And so the landowners wanted to get rid of the people and had no problem in just saying, okay, you can't live here anymore, off you go. So people across the Highlands were told to leave their houses and their homes where they had lived for generations, and just walk. And so they did this same walk, not just from where we're going, from right the way across the Highlands, often to Glasgow, which was a port city where people would then leave, because the whole, the new world was opening up. There was an idea that you could go off across the sea, and some people, and maybe get rich, or maybe have a better life. But there are very poignant songs that people would sing, both here and across in the States, remembering when they were young and when they lived in a kind of simple way in the countryside. So that whole uprooting and upheaval from one's own land, from the place where we belong, from the place where our ancestors have lived, is part of the Scottish experience as well. And then, of course, off they went to ultimately push other people off their land and do exactly the same thing. So the cycle continues. Would you like to add anything, Jeff?
Yeah, no, that's really clear. Yeah. I mean, I guess everyone belonged. Everyone lived as they lived until they were pushed off or controlled or dominated. So it's kind of like that's how we all were. There isn't somewhere in the world where it started from, really. But I certainly, Anna, what you were saying there when I'm in Africa and I'm telling folk about what happened here, not just in Scotland but in England too. The enclosures in England were again the same people being cleared from their land and then being used. People would be grabbed in pubs or whatever, being taken, being press ganged into being in the military and being taken abroad, and in Scotland people were pushed onto very marginal land mostly. So they'd either be taken to Glasgow to work in the factories or to be pushed off to go abroad and take people's lands, or they'd be pushed right to the margins and then they'd be only just surviving. So then they'd be desperate and then they'd look like they were choosing to go abroad, but they weren't choosing. They were choosing to try and survive rather than be dying effectively on the such marginal land. So yeah, people do in Africa seem to find when I'm telling that story, they find it really helpful to kind of go, oh right, okay, you're not just horrible people. You're not just from a horrible system. You're also victims, as we are, of the system. And what's happening in Gaza right now is absolutely horrendous and is the same process of some people treating other people as if they're not even human, and you can just murder them, which is what happened with the Aboriginal people in Australia when Europeans came there, just murdering them, and that happened in lots of Africa, happened in North, so this notion of just like wiping people out mostly because they really are connected. Like somehow people are a threat when they are deeply connected to each other and their land. That's a threat to domination. So I guess remembering that we have the power on our side, that we've got all the power of connection, and that system only works by separating us from ourselves and from our land, and then using us to do the same to others. There's an amazing story by a Yarrowlin Aboriginal man in Australia who just tells the story of what happened in London. He tells us this is back in the 50s, 60s, but he tells a story about the kind of just that's he's telling it in an Aboriginal way, but he's telling from his perspective, his understanding of what's happened and just how people became part of this kind of madness and then did the same to other people. But just really, he was being able to be sympathetic, kind of like not to the process, which is awful, but to the people caught up in it. So as Eva says, this walk is an attempt to recreate and remember that way in which people were forced off their land, walk that route, walking from the Highlands down to the city, down to the dockside where people were taken from abroad to do the same elsewhere, and in the process, trying to remember, well, how did we relate? How do we relate to each other? There'll be a lot of music and there'll be a lot of dance. There'll be a lot of creativity on the way, and a lot of, as you were saying, a walking assembly. Which I think Eva would be good if you wanted to say something on the next, but I don't know. Anna, back to you.
Wow, I was full of goosebumps, Eva, when you were sharing about the moment. I can sense the pain and the intensity of us living these histories and remembering maybe how my grandparents came out of Spain. I last night I was asking my mother that just arrived here yesterday why they came. Like, do you know why your grandparents came here? And the history is, do you know from which port they came out? No, new. The information is lost. Do you know where my grandmother was born? The one that was born on the way? No idea. Like all this information, like to activate the healing processes. Once someone told me, if you know from which port you came out, go there and do a ceremony for your ancestors. This is a way to open the healing processes. And somehow you have this information and you're walking it. And something that resonated with me, Eva, of what you say was beyond the North and the South, the perpetrators, the colonizers. Later, we were colonized by capitalism. And today, we are all human beings working in a way in cities around the globe in which this separation is not the same as 200 years ago, 500 years ago. So how to do the healing now? And Justin answer a little bit this, like, when we are separate from the land and when we are separate from each other, like the power of community and the power of connection with the land is what will create the healing somehow. So then asking you, and with the question of Justin, like, how is the, like, the vision, which is the vision of the walk towards this collective healing, through the assembly, through arts, through music, through community, through the connection with the land? How, if you can tell friends around, what is the idea? And I hope to be able to join you even from far away when you're walking. So if you can also let us know how we can be of support, connected, like empowering you, praying with you in those days, because many are there with you without the physical body. Yeah.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, that's really lovely, and in fact there is it was an idea of a lovely Peruvian friend who lives here, to try to make a way for people to join the walk from their own place. So to know that we're walking, 5 miles, 10 miles on this day, we're all there walking from, I don't know where it will be, Korean Lark to wherever, but you can walk that distance in your own place, in solidarity. I'll see if I can send a link to something about that. And I've just, do you know the way things come in on your laptop as you're also trying to focus on a meeting? We've been struggling to get the map of the route up on our website, but it's so you can have a look and see the both the kind of road that we'll take, but all our stops. So in terms of that kind of healing piece that you're asking about, in some ways, who knows? It feels like what I was feeling like when you said was we have a big pot. This walk is our big pot, and we're just thrown a whole lot of different things into it that seem like good things, carrots, potatoes, and hopefully it'll make a good soup, a kind of healing, healthy soup that can feed us. And I feel really sure that it will. Um, so yes, you were talking about the kind of cultural elements, and we're very lucky that there are actually at least 3 plays that have been written very recently about land in Scotland, and we're going to have performances of them at different points along the route. In fact, there's one place that we're going to have all 3, probably a little bit of each one. And we're also inviting people to come with musical instruments and to tell stories and to sing songs. But there are also, if we're passing through a place where we know there's a particularly good performer, we've also kind of invited them to come and play at our evening meeting once we get in. So we'll have a range of different kind of cultural inputs. And there's a guy who's filming the whole thing and going to make a documentary. The Peruvian friend is into photo stories. So kind of helping people to document their own story through photography. And there's poets coming, and there's a huge amount. I think people have felt really inspired by the idea and feel like it's a kind of a moment where we can open up and explore together through a whole range of different ways these ideas. And the assembly idea was one that kind of came as we were planning. And again, it's something that we don't know how to do. Apparently there is a tradition in Latin America, or certainly in Nicaragua. They are going on walks in order to have meetings, and long conversations was one of the things that they did. Serge, who's one of our team, has worked in Nicaragua a lot and said, yeah, this is a thing. But we don't know how to do that thing. And so, we all know that when you go for a long walk with somebody, you often have really lovely, interesting, deep conversation, and something about that traveling together. And it's okay if you're quiet, and birds will fly over, or you'll see a beautiful view. And so things kind of emerge with the landscape as much as anything else. But what we thought was that we would have a morning meeting and an evening meeting. The morning meeting will be more organizing, because we also have lots of, we need to have people to help with the cooking and to help with the driving and to lead the walk and to follow the walk to make sure nobody gets left behind. So we have lots of roles that need to be allocated. So there's a kind of slightly organized meeting in the mornings. And then in the evenings, there will be an invitation for people to share something of the conversations that they've had, and then to continue that conversation around the fire. And what we're imagining is that there will be some big themes, some things that people just keep coming back to and keep talking about again, that we can really start to dig into together and to try to really understand. And one of my big questions, I guess, that I'm coming with, I have several, but one of the more practical questions around the assemblies is how we bring in the earth, the land, as an active participant, because it's quite countercultural here. It's people will find it very embarrassing to talk about Mother Earth. It's not something that we do. And to say that the earth might want to have a voice, or might want to contribute to our assembly, for many people is a stretch and could be embarrassing. We're very. It's interesting how embarrassment is really used to control us and to limit our access to particular ways of being. And I also think that it's quite easy to maybe to react to that and to get very to make it very, very special, and to kind of want to play the role of the priest or the priestess, to call in the elements, or to call in, which is not a bad thing to do in itself, but I think it's hard to find a balance where you're trying to make space for something like that, where you're trying to do it in an ordinary way. And I hope that we'll find that. I actually feel like it might be easier than I think, and that actually the Mother Earth may well just elbow her way in and put herself in the center. I really hope so. Anything to add there, Justin?
No, that was lovely. I mean, I guess I really don't know how stressful it's going to be.
Yeah.
I mean, that's so, I don't know, have we managed to get the right amount of food and cooking equipment? And for some parts, we're having to use a boat to cross from islands to and so on. And will the weather be okay for crossing? And will we be able to get people across? And will we be able to walk? And how do we, some of the parts are, there's others, it will be enough space for people to camp. And, so there's a lot of, it's incredibly practical thing, moving a whole bunch of folk across the land. It's like an army moving in some ways. It's a peaceful army. It's not causing any harm, though we might be seen negatively as well by landowners. We're walking over big landowners' land. So how will they see that? And we don't want to alienate anybody. We don't want to make things harder for the communities we're visiting, and some of them will feel a bit nervous about being supportive if, so we're moving through, it's not like a march. I'm more used to a march where you kind of get your gear together and you go. This is a walk. It's a threading walk of people in almost single file or in twos across the land, and it's very, and needing to be sensitive to the communities we're in, and not to be, so it feels very much like becoming real. How do we feed ourselves? How do we take care of each other? It's often really wet here. The weather doesn't look like it's going to be particularly good. How do we manage to get wet tents up the next night and people sleep in them when they're already wet from the night before? So there's a lot of really practical kind of questions. So I guess that's what I'm saying is I don't, there's a real, Mother Earth. There's a real challenge there. It's not like yeah, there's a connectedness, and I know from experience how, for me, how powerful walking is. Like I totally, I would love to walk the whole way just because I really find that empowering to be just stepping and stepping and stepping and stepping and stepping and stepping and stepping. It's a really, really powerful meditation. Um, and to be talking and to be silent and to not be on Zooms or whatever. It's lovely to be here, but to be stepping out of that pixelated world for a while.
Mm,
So I don't really know what's going to happen between the kind of practicality of everything and then what Eva was describing there in terms of the kind of the anticipation of how we might meet each other and meet the land, and then just the kind of realities of who are we when we're no longer caught, when I'm no longer caught in this. I have so many deadlines. I was supposed to be in another meeting just now. I managed to get out of it, so I'm here. That's great. But I'm supposed to be in at least two places at the same time all the time. And I am anticipating walking and not having to be somewhere else. For me, that's revolutionary. So I think that people have that kind of experience. Certainly, I think I will, of like not really knowing what you're meeting when you're not doing what we are normally trained to do, um, and 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 being in such a kind of peculiar situation where there's a lot to navigate and negotiate between people who have personalities and personalities clash, and yet how do you stay tender and friendly and honest? And so I feel like it's a very it's a much more real thing than it looks like when you're kind of looking forward to it. It's like, whoa, there we go. But actually, it's a very yeah, very much looking forward to it. Yeah, yeah,
mm. Thanks for being here, Justin. And please, if you need to run to coordinate something in any moment, let us know.
yeah.
And at the same time, I appreciate so much this moment of conversation and then to share this recording with many people so they know what you're doing.
Mm,
And um, yeah, you mentioned like the walking meditation, and when I was listening, the images of Buddhist traditions, shamanic traditions, many different spiritual traditions in the world used to walk. The Nicaragua you mentioned, Eva, used to walk to go into a space that is not the same space of sitting in a regular place. Like something happened when we go into the journey mode or the journey dimension in nomadic field somehow, um, that opens another possibility. And I remember when walking with friends on nature, like the first hour and then maybe the first 2 and 3 hours, my mind is full of information. And it's like a reset of the mind, like all the things of life start going through the screen of the mind. And after 3 hours, it is a bit more empty. And
mm,
then something start to come out.
mm,
Um, and I believe, and I trust so much in that, querida Eva, that Mother Earth speaks in so many ways. And she speaks in our language, not her language. The
mm,
bird will cross, the something will happen, the trees will move. Um, and if we are kind of open to receive the messages, um, things will happen and
mm,
they are out of our control. And for that, I so much appreciate the care of the practicalities that you're mentioning, Justin, because when we have kind of the basic safe, we can open space to the mystery to manifest. And
mm,
I understand somehow you're like opening space for that, for the healing to happen beyond our individuality, beyond our control of our like little minds understanding the world and history, and our little humanities of 60, 70, 90 years in a
mm,
history of thousands of years, because the power over culture has been how many centuries in the land, like. So appreciating so much this that you're doing, and yeah, asking also for everything to support you in these moments, to have practicalities available. Hopefully people receive you in the best way, they can support you in the way, so you can have the space to go deep. Yeah, because you're doing something that is bigger than us. And so I don't know if you want to add something, if something is alive there, to keep sharing, whatever.
I guess one thing, I think what you're saying there is lovely, and so it sounds like becoming available to ourselves and each other and the land. And I agree with you about the way the birds fly or the clouds move, and becoming available to that rather than missing it. But I guess the other thing I wanted to add was something about, so Eva and I are both working in kind of what we call heart politics. So, on the one hand, being with the heart, on the other hand, with the kind of structures of how the world is, the system, the kind of bulldozer that's crushing everything, and then being with the heart. So we're trying to be with both. So part of what we may be thinking through in the assembly is how do we reclaim politics? So not just how do we connect ourselves, which is obviously the basic, and without being connected, then it doesn't help. Nothing helps. But being connected, then what action do we take to reclaim our political systems? Like so in Chile or here or wherever, how do we reclaim those for the kind of assemblies that Eva was describing? So the decisions aren't made by people who are cut off from themselves and cut everybody else off, but are made by people who are connected to each other and enabling others to be connected. So there's that aspect too, and hopefully we'll arrive at some kind of ideas around that from there. Eva, you got anything you'd like to add? Jet lagged.
Jet lagged, Eva. Yes, that's definitely a strand that I'm interested in and hope will come out. And I guess the other for me is about, how do we reclaim the land? How do we shift from the quite timid approach that the Scottish government has taken, which is absolutely better than nothing, um, and move into something more radical. And I think it's quite, yeah, I have real questions about it. I do hope that we have those conversations because when people who have lived on the land for generations and generations um are faced with being pushed off it, they don't go easily. They fight. They fight to stay on their land. Always, always, always. And in a way, our journey is partly to go back to having that depth of relationship with the land that we would fight to keep it. And it's not the violence or the fighting that I'm interested in. It's the strength of the attachment. It's like a member of your family. You wouldn't let them be taken from you. And we're not there yet. I think people do really care about the land. They really love it. They feel very sad that it's so difficult for us to spend any length of time on the land or unless we financially own it. But I think we have a long way to go in order to rebuild that level of relationship that we feel that it's part of us. And I think that kind of that happens hand in hand with community and with being more collective ourselves, less invested in these kind of individual lives that we have, and more in the sense that we're a community of beings living with the rest of the community of beings. So yeah, I'm super keen for those kinds of conversations. I really hope that we'll talk about them.
Yeah, and to start closing also, I want to share that when I was visiting you and get to know what happened with the land there and the difficulties of communities wanting to create like permaculture projects, regenerative communities, is very high because of the land situation. There's a lot of people wanting to create new options, but they are like manos atadas, how you say this in English, like the hands are tied. Yeah, because you cannot start the community without the land. So it's like a tricky, super tricky block of freedom to people to do and manifest their dreams. So I think if you share that this happens there, because in many other places in the world, this is not like that. And community can get land and start their projects. So I think also it's good if you inform, maybe in short videos, what is the reality you're facing to the world, so people understand what you're living, because it's not the same in every place. Um, and yeah, thank you so, so much for these moments just before you start walking. We're here to support you. The best for that. Thanks for your work, for all this life that you have been doing so much. I know you're activists from the heart and deep politic activists also, as Justin was mentioning, is we need to create real changes, and they need to be written in laws. And I'm so glad that this is happening in many places of the world. In Chile, we have a right that is called Derecho Real de Conservación. I don't know the translation, but you can, the Derecho Real de Conservación is a higher law than private property. And you can put this over lakes, forests, rivers, to take care. And you can send the land, but you cannot change this right. So you can take care of natural places. And we have also the Mother Earth rights alive in other countries. And I think we could start doing this laws in different places of the world, taking care of ecology, but also of culture, not only of nature, also of our humanity and our differences and diversity. So thank you so much. And please run and take care of that pot.
Thanks so much, Anna. It's lovely to see you.
Yeah, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Besitos. Bye bye.
Very good. Lovely to see you, my sweet.
Yeah, I will stop recording. How? Wait me.